Welcome to episode 52 of Rubbish Talk with myself, Alistair Meldrum.
And myself, Jane Bond.
End of another year, Jane. Year 2 of Rubbish Talk podcasts, eh?
Absolutely. We're going great guns here, Alistair. So who have we got today then?
We have a young lady called Sarah Cartmill who works for MVV Environment Limited, which is the waste energy facility in Dundee, and she is the Community Liaison Manager. So more about Sarah later on, but first of all, Jane, we've had complaints. We've had some Rubbish Talk complaints.
Oh dear, what?
We had
what?
And I'm not sure who's at fault. I'm not sure who's at fault for this one, but we have not spelled out what CIWM means properly.
Oh.
Because it's actually the Chartered Institution of Wastes Management, which I always find quite a mouthful.
I was just going to say, that's why I always call it CIWM.
Well, we call it CIWM, but it's also, a lot of people call it the Chartered Institute of Waste Management, and they miss out the S and they miss out the institution. So there you go. So that was George Niblock that pulled us up in that. So if nobody's listened to his episode 11, we had George Niblock on. So point taken, George. I did know that. I'm not quite sure Jane was aware of that when she'd written. I don't think Jane writes out CIWM in full.
I don't think I've. No, I don't think I have. But anyway, now
you've never had reason to look it up, Jane. So there you go.
Well, I did know that.
And the other one, I had another complaint.
Really?
From Nick Noble.
All right. What was his complaint?
You called him that bloke with the
that bloke with the robot.
You called him that bloke with the robots. So there you go. So
whoops, sorry, no.
I'm not sure that was a genuine complaint or not, but anyway, rapidly approaching Christmas. What we've got, I don't think we've got very much news.
Well,
we're all in the counting down, but
well, I tell you what, there's this guy who's obviously, who's if he gets his way, he might have a fantastic Christmas, but he's seeking to recover a lost hard drive from a landfill site containing apparently 600 million Bitcoin fortune. And I saw this, but I hadn't realised he was trying to get it from a landfill site. But yeah, it was this guy who he threw away, for some reason, he threw away his hard drive, and apparently he'd made loads of money on Bitcoins, which to me is completely over my head. And I have no idea quite how you make money out of something that's just, I don't know, virtual. But anyway.
Well, seemingly bought the Bitcoins years and years right at this very start, and that's why they're worth so much money. So he's not got that many Bitcoins, but because they've gone up.
Wow.
But he knew he had them in that machine, that computer, and he purposely took the hard drive out to keep it, and then for whatever reason it got so thrown out, and now he's trying to force the operator of the site to search for his Bitcoins, and it's like
a needle in a haystack, really?
I don't quite. Well, exactly. I think people, we used to get people that, my wife's thrown out her precious, the auntie's precious jewellery, and can we find it in that load of waste? It was hard enough to find in a load of waste, far less, hundreds and hundreds of tons of waste that have been tipped over there for years and years. But more of that later, actually. So we're going to talk about searching landfill sites for things later on. So. Good luck to, what's his name, James Howells. We'll put the link up to the link if anybody's interested in helping this poor man find his hard drive.
Yeah, was it Newport Council in Wales? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Well, so we've got Scottish budget. I for some reason I can't remember why I started delving into the Scottish budget, and I found the environmental services spend, which funds things like SEPA, Zero Waste Scotland, and so on. But when I was looking through it, I was a bit intrigued because there was two lines in the budget. There was one for Zero Waste, and there was one for Zero Waste Scotland. And for last year and this year, there's nothing in for Zero Waste Scotland, and then next year there's 16.4 million. But I think it transpires that Zero Waste Scotland has been funded from this zero waste line before, so it's not very clear on the wee budget table, is it, Jane?
No, it's not really. It's a bit confusing because it says zero waste, but it's still got a line for zero waste. So there's still quite a lot of money being spent on zero waste that isn't on Zero Waste Scotland. So I wonder what that is. And also,
Yeah, it looks like if you added two. Sorry, I was going to say.
I was just
if you
going to
added
say,
two figures,
what does it come to?
about 39.6 million.
36, yeah.
Isn't it?
So it's gone down significantly as well.
Aye, 39.6. So it's down by 5 million. It's down by 5 million.
Well,
And the Scottish, there's somebody else got it wrong, Jane.
I know. Well, I was
Scottish
looking.
Environmental Protection Agency.
Well, I was looking at this, and do you know
See,
what?
you knew that one.
I knew that. Scottish Government always get this wrong. They always put it as Scottish Environmental Protection Agency instead of Scottish Environment Protection Agency. And I don't know whether it's everybody else has got it wrong and Scottish Government has got it right, or whether Scottish Government got it wrong, perhaps.
All right.
Anyway.
You never know. So their budget's gone from, their budget's actually gone up 53.8 million to 55.4 million.
Did go down significantly, though.
But there is.
Yeah, this year.
Oh, I know, and from last year, yeah. But there's two lines in there: environmental quality and nature restoration. We have no clue what for. 23 million and 18 million.
What's interesting is they're talking about the new status of Zero Waste Scotland as an NDPB, which we had to look up, didn't we? It's non-department public body, which is a public organisation that plays a role in the national government but is not part of a government department. But I don't know what they were before.
I always thought that's what Zero Waste Scotland was.
Yeah.
No, that's all I always thought it was before.
So was it? Yeah. So I don't quite know what the change is. Anyway, I'm sure somebody will tell us.
But anyway, and I was asking questions on LinkedIn, and Andy Dick, who works for East Renfrewshire Council, I think gave us the most sensible sort of answers about it. But it's not totally clear. But we'll share the link to the budget. If anybody's got any better answers than us, then please let us know.
Yeah, please let us know.
And staying on SEPA, I believe SEPA have got a new money making venture that they use.
Well, yes, I guess you could call it that. There seems to be a bit of a challenges with SEPA's approach to the duly made applications. SEPA have a number of applications being put in, which normally you would expect to have been duly made. The application form's been filled in. The information that they want has been provided as identified on the application form, and then it's coming. Then they're not making that application duly made for, a number of reasons, which seems to be a bit of a change in approach. Do you not think, Alistair?
Well, and if the refuse had been duly made, they're charging, is it 20%?
Yeah, 20% of the application fee. Yeah.
So I suppose if you're sitting in SEPA trying to balance your budget, you keep refusing applications and you keep gathering up the 20%.
Well, I don't. Yeah,
if I'm
possibly
being cynical.
Possibly, but again, I don't know whether the offices are thinking that way because they get paid anyway, don't they? Whether they refuse it or not make it duly made or not. But it used to be you'd put it in and then you'd have the discussions. And the thing is, the discussions don't seem to be having any discussions. It's just like, you haven't done this, or this technical detail hasn't been complete or given us fully. Whereas before you would have the discussions and you'd be able to update information and do that. But I don't know. I think perhaps they're trying to look and see that their timescales aren't making sure their timescales aren't being extended.
Well, I think definitely they're under pressure in terms of timescales, and I can understand that if they're getting applications in that are substandard, then that affects their timescales. But I think in the past, I used to work that you submitted your application. If it was simple, straightforward stuff, they asked for it, you gave it over, and that was then duly made, and it started the process. If it was more complicated, they would issue a Schedule 4 notice, and you would have time to do that. I think the problem SEPA probably don't realise is when you're putting these applications together, you're almost having to second guess what SEPA's actually wanting and what they're wanting to cover. And I think, I know when I've talked to SEPA in the past about SEPA application fees, SEPA are under a lot of pressure not to increase these. But the reality is, for a lot of waste operators, it's not the actual cost of the application is the big cost. It's the staff time, it's all the technical reports they need done, it's all the investment for the change they're putting in place. It's all that type of stuff that's the big change.
And the time
and the SEPA
as
application
well.
fee is yeah, exactly. It's a relatively small part of the process. And most of these applicants are either trying to modify their permits to make sure they stay in compliance, or modifying their permits to improve the site, which is really what SEPA should be trying to support. So I think probably there's a bit of frustration from ourselves and from our customers that it seems that it's almost like rocks have been put under the wheels sort of thing to slow things down, rather than maybe thinking for the benefit of Scotland PLC that a bit more of a customer focus on the applications would be quite useful. Because at the end of the day, in reality, once a permit's been issued or permit's been modified, SEPA's still the regulator, so they can still regulate. So it always strikes me as strange that they seem to have this really, really high bar to get a permit modified or issued, and then almost once you get it, quite often they almost forget about you and they never come back, sort of thing. So it's strange.
Yeah, I think it's the waste management licenses. The waste management, like PPC, I think is a bit different. So if you own a PPC permit, it's a bit different. But if it's the waste management license, it's supposed to be, it's a lightly more of a simple process. And then, you look at what they've issued as a waste management license, and you're like, really? It took you that long to do that? So I suppose it's just trying to get that balance, isn't it?
I was shown one the other day where a certain question number asks you whether whether the client's had any criminal convictions or gone to prison. All this, there's a list of about 5 or 6 things, all about convictions. But if you've not had any of these things, there's no box to tick. So in the report we got back returning an application, it was we hadn't filled the box in. And we hadn't filled the box in because they hadn't had any criminal convictions or anything. It's like,
yeah.
What do you want? If your form isn't right and it's not asking the right questions, don't come back and say it's not been done right.
Well, we had an application where it says tick one box. So we ticked one box, and they came back and said, "Well, you didn't tick the other box." Well, we only said one box. It's like,
I think. Yeah, the form. I know the form's hardly changed for about 20 years, and maybe sometimes some of the errors are coming up, or maybe because of the layout of the form and so on. But maybe SEPA digitisation of things might see us through. You never know.
Well, I was on that.
Maybe
we were on that meeting, weren't we? About the digitisation. Oh well, I was on a meeting about digitisation for the new ESA forms. Which looked quite good actually. I was quite impressed with it really. Once we'd had a few discussions and chats about what does this mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's to come.
Maybe in 2025 we just need to reach out to SEPA and have a discussion about it in terms of how we manage this. If SEPA has changed the rules about applications, then it'd be good if they let everybody knew and we could all apply from the same basis. And if there are any listeners out there that have been struggling with applications, quite happy for you to reach out to us on hello@rubbishtalk.co.uk, and maybe we could, share some stories and thoughts on how we make this better. Because at the end of the day, we all need a regulation system that works for the sector. So let's go with that, eh?
Yeah, no, that'd be good.
And then last but not least for 2024, I'm going to set people some homework, Jane.
Oh right,
well, I'm not really.
Is it me as well?
There's a BBC documentary called Limbs in the Law: Catching a Killer, and that was about the horrible murder of a poor boy called Barry Wallace by William Beggs. So it's a 6-part serialisation that's on BBC at the moment. And the reason I'm highlighting it is the part of that story was they searched on Garlaff landfill site for some things, and we're going to talk about it in episode 53.
Oh, so for the new year.
If you want to get ahead of the game, if you want to get ahead of the game before the next episode, then
watch
how
this.
will you look? But
Yeah.
it's maybe not the sort of documentary you want to put on Christmas Day when all the families there, though, because it's a bit. I have sat through it and it's not nice at all.
Okay.
So,
okay.
there
Well,
we go.
moving on to Albion news. I guess we need to wish everybody happy Christmas, don't we? And thank you very much for listening for the last year. Keep up the good work by liking our posts and commenting and sharing Rubbish Talk. We've done a lot of, there's been a lot of Christmas posts with lots of links to all our podcasts and what's been, for you to go back and listen to them. So happy Christmas. We're also on YouTube. We're everywhere now, aren't we, Alistair? Absolutely everywhere.
Well, you struggle to find us on YouTube. So if any listeners are on YouTube, please give us a wee like and a follow on YouTube to get our rankings are a bit low on YouTube now. So by all means do that. So Mia's posting out on Rubbish Talk on LinkedIn. So if you've not liked that page, please do so. And as always, if you're not signed up to the newsletter, do so. And we always love to hear from people, so please get in touch via hello@rubbishtalk.co.uk.
Okay.
So I was going to say that's us, but we better go back and introduce our guest, Sarah Cartmill, who is actually probably sunning when this episode goes out. She's probably sunning herself in Bali, but she was away to get a flight just after we recorded. So, as I said at the start, she's the Community Liaison Manager for MVV Environment Limited. And she's pretty new to the industry. She's only been in the industry for 3 years, but she has worked for many years. And her story about how she entered the waste industry and found her passion, I think. So over to myself, Jane and Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Welcome to Rubbish Talk. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. We've got a number of questions to ask you. Don't be nervous. We'll be fine. First question is, can you tell us who you currently work for and a bit of background about the organisation, and we can start from there?
Sure. I work for a company called MVV Environment, which is a combined heat and power energy from waste facility in Dundee. So MVV entered a 25-year contract with Dundee City Council and Angus Council in November 2017 to manage their non-recyclable waste. So the site has a capacity to process approximately about 200,000 tonnes of non-recyclable waste per year. And as a byproduct of that, we generate around 10 megawatts of electricity. So it's enough to power about 23,000 homes. So that's a third of Dundee, is the way I like to sort of explain that. And that currently gets exported to the national grid.
Excellent. That's a lot of megawatts, isn't it? But that keeps you busy. Must be a big bunker full of waste in there as well.
Yeah, it's actually a really cool place, actually. We've got a reception bunker and a storage bunker. And take about 300 tonnes a day from both councils, Dundee City Council and Angus Council area. So it's a really cool tip. Have you both been? You should come and visit.
I've been, but not a year. Was a year ago? In fact, me and you were both there, Jane, were we not?
Yeah, we went. Yeah.
Yeah, for the Switch AGM was that must have been last year. Was that last year or the year before? And I always think Dundee, the plant there is quite interesting because it's almost like the history of incineration in Scotland, because you've got the site where the original plant was, there's a site that's been refurbished, and then there's the brand new facility. So it's almost like, waste energy or incineration through the ages in Scotland, just about.
Yeah, I think the ACC is quite cool for that, because it's sort of made of wood, and then it sort of goes on to sort of a steel, so you could kind of see the difference, even though it's the same technology, but it's two different things over time. So that's quite a cool bit of kit to see the difference in.
I was going to say, I was up at Ness at the Aberdeen facility last week doing some training, and I tell you what, that's full of like chrome and that's quite impressive as well.
I must get to see other plants, actually. That's something I was trying to do at Resource in Scotland. I was trying to get lots of contacts so I can get visits to all of the sites. So yeah, definitely I'll get out to visit a few in the coming year.
Yeah, but NVV's got a couple of other facilities across the UK, haven't they? They've got some plants down south, I think it is.
Yeah, so down in Devonport and Ridham. Devonport's a combined heat and power, and then Ridham is biomass.
Right.
Yeah, so 2 sites down there.
You haven't had a trip down there yet then, Sarah?
Yeah, for sure. Down in Devonport. So I've got a sort of counterpart, community liaison manager that works down there, and my manager works down there. So I get to go down and get wined and dined with the team, which is a lot of fun.
That's good.
And get to go and visit. Yeah, good fun.
So before I ask my next official question, better ask you, Sarah, what's your actual role there then? What's your role with MVV at the moment?
So I am a community liaison manager, and there's currently 2 of us. So my job's basically to look after the community benefits that are embedded in the contract. So it includes things like supplier development, employment and skills activity, environmental awareness, sponsorship. The way to sort of describe it is I basically come up with something creative and then that's going to inspire waste learning and community, and then I execute it. So it's a lot of fun. I just spend a lot of time having a lot of fun. Yeah, it's good.
Sounds like a good job to me.
So lots of events, presentations. I work in and out of schools, colleges. I do visits and tours at the facility. Running STEM activities. I do an open day. So yeah, there's loads of good stuff. Marketing, creative, comms. So yeah, it's good. And it's just all about inspiring.
To get a lot of visitors around your site then, Sarah.
Yeah, so bring in schools and colleges, and then serve any kind of visitors and things, any community that want to come in, community groups. And it's just all about understanding that we're taking the non-recyclable waste. So we want them to come and we want them to see it. We see everything in the bunker. So they look at it and they leave inspired to recycle. And that's the whole point of it, is to get the right things in the right bins. And that's my job, to basically inspire and set that message.
Sounds good. So what brought you into the world of waste management? Did you plan it, or did you accidentally come upon it?
I suppose in the grand scheme of things, I would say I'm a newbie. I definitely would be. So it's a long story, but so COVID basically brought me home. I worked for 2E before, in ski and on the beach. So I did that. Yeah,
I'm jealous of that one. I've actually had this conversation already, Sarah, haven't we? When we met at the Resource in Scotland.
Yeah.
I can't answer. Where were you based for skiing?
So when COVID happened, I was in Italy.
Right.
So yeah, I got basically two lockdowns. I don't know, Prime Minister, I think comes on the TV and he basically locked down Italy. And then we sort of had to leave in the dead of the night, which is so dramatic, but it was so true. You know, kind of like 3 a.m, we were sort of chased out of the country, really. And we had to go cross border to get a plane. I was one of 3 people on the flight back, coming into the country. And then basically, yeah, so I did do lockdown, was at my mum's, and just, 35, and was like, oh, I might need to do this adult thing. And it just sort of knocked for the first time that I was, turning the ripe old age of 35, and might need to go start a career. So I bounced about quite a lot for a couple of years, and it genuinely felt like I was getting nowhere. And I got a job with NWH Group in sales, and really got a good example of a good team, camaraderie, good management. I really enjoyed my time there, and always appreciate my time. It was short-lived. I think it was 10 months, nearly a year. And my dad's partner sent me a job profile for Community Liaison Manager job in MVV. And by this time I was already very intrigued by the waste industry. I loved bins. You don't know why, we're bin obsessed. And, we'd go places and look at their waste solution and festivals and what they're doing and all of this stuff. So I was already sort of very part of that conversation. And then the job profile for community liaison came up, and I just realised that it was everything in my wheelhouse. It was all the strings I had to my bow, all my previous experience sort of wrapped up in one. I did media and communication at university, so it sort of covered that. It made that loan worth it because I finally got to say, oh wait, I'm actually using my degree, which is good.
There's not many people can say that. Most people say they never use a degree once they've done it.
I know, and honestly, when I get that bonus and they take that massive chunk off, I think, it's okay, Sarah, you're using it now. So that's fine. So I applied for the role and in a nutshell, got it. And yeah, it's just one of those things that's, I always said, what's for you won't go past you. And I think that was just one of those moments. And getting into the role, kind of feeling like, it's so silly to say, because obviously I got to 35 years old, but that moment where you're like, this is what people are talking about. This is my forever job or forever career or, that kind of thing. And I suppose that's the kind of feeling that I get with it. So it's kind of meant to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sounds good. So was there any particular favourite roles or projects, either NWH or MVB, or has it been a fairly painless journey? Did you feel you had to get up to speed with MVB?
Yeah, I mean, my knowledge in general around the waste industry, it's growing, all the time. But I do have to find myself in a lot of climate change conversations, and learning about the subject it's been really intriguing and also positive. It's kind of like the more I learn, the more positive I feel about where we're at in a sense of climate change, which is really good, because when I first started sort of learning and understanding, I actually did feel a wee bit negative. But as I think we've moved into sort of a more solution-based conversations, which is nice, to be a part of that conversation constantly in my role. But no, just every day, my job is a lot of fun, and I have sort of creative freedoms, and I do need to remind myself quite a lot about my abilities, and most of the time just keep surprising myself that things work out. And I hope this podcast will do the same.
Of course it will.
Where you do something and you think, oh, okay, that went well, that wasn't terrible. So yeah, but just every day is always different, and I think that's what keeps it good.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
well, this industry certainly makes it different every day. It's never what one day is the same, really. What about your worst job or any disasters? I mean, this is primarily in the waste industry, but if there's any funny stories you've got about your skiing or sitting by the beach, then that would be quite interesting as well. We'll give you 2 stories, Sarah.
There must be some holiday rep stories.
There must be some amazing.
Whether you're allowed to share them or not.
I know. I am honestly a walking cringe magnet, if I'm honest with you both. But I tend to talk a lot, which can make people laugh and also get me in trouble, which I'm trying not to do on this podcast today.
Well, find something before the end of the episode that you've made a mess of, that you want to confess on air to myself and Jane. Nobody else listens, so you're fine. It's just me and Jane.
I was laughing at you actually in the your last podcast, and you mentioned the Hypnocat story, and I was like, wait, that was me.
Was it? I couldn't remember who had said that.
Yeah, because when you came up, I'd said to you, so you'll never believe this. When I first started, I was telling people about this Hypnocat, and that it was created by this guy called Alistair Meldrum. And then it wasn't until later on I'd realised, oh no, wait, it's Material Focus. That's not Alistair Meldrum. So the whole time I just thought you'd worked for Material Focus, but it wasn't.
Cool.
So it was
That's
me.
Fine. Thinking about your role in waste management, do you think it's changed your opinions and habits out with the workplace? Do you feel you need to sell the message to your family and friends and be the recycling geek?
Yeah, obviously a complete lecturer, always lecturing everyone about recycling and littering. Littering's quite a big one because I always give the kids that lecture. It's quite funny because we used to get the lecture back in the 90s about littering. And it's like we sort of stopped doing it because we thought, oh, we're there. You know, we don't need to worry about littering. We need to go on to the recycling and the reducing bit. But I do think that it still needs to be sort of said. So yeah, it's something that I talk to the young people about a lot. Leaving no trace up Monroe's, trying to get people to drink from the tap. I just can't get on board with people who drink water out of plastic bottles in Scotland. It's just something that especially indoors, when a tap's right there. Yeah, so I'm definitely that kind of person where I'm saying that all the time.
Talking about litter there, Sarah, I think Keep Britain Tidy or something is it 70 years old? 70-year-old that campaign's been running for. And you think, yeah, it's maybe been running for 70 years, but as a campaign, it's probably failed to a certain extent because we have got such a big issue with litter.
Yeah, you definitely see it. I feel like it did. I don't know, maybe I just got a bit unaware. Maybe I'm just aware more now.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was, I thought that was something that we'd nailed. You know, Miss Utopia over here. But yeah, I thought it was something that we'd got down.
We'd cracked it and didn't need to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, but it's definitely not. It's something that still needs to be mentioned. I always, when the young people come into the visitor centre, I always think there's a fine line between a school trip and having a really nice time and then me just standing up there lecturing them. So I always give them the lecture and then right at the end I'm like, okay, let's go and have fun and see the place. Because yeah, they do sit there with their dead face thinking, why is this adult giving me this lecture on vaping?
How do you think, in terms of the engagement work, you're obviously doing quite a lot of that engagement work. Do you get a sense that you're changing people's either opinions or views? Do you get that sense whether they're maybe coming in not really aware of the amount of waste that's produced, how it needs to be managed? Do you think you are changing opinions over the course of that engagement, or do you think it's a bit longer term that you've just got to start gradually and build up over time?
I think the younger the better. You know, when we get the little ones in, they're, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. They're wowed and impacted by, what they see and what they're discussing. And they're knowledgeable on what they need to do. Where you sort of, what it's like when you hit that sort of 14 age. Sometimes my biggest sort of a pat on the back to myself, I suppose, is the 14-year-olds who arrive on site, and I always think, oh no, the teenagers are coming. But they come in and they all give you the teenage dead face stare at the start, and I'm giving them the presentation around what they're going to see and all of this stuff. And by the end, they're bouncing and happy and having a really nice time. And I think that's so good. That's so impactful how they come in dead face and they leave smiling and skipping. And whether that be just something that they've seen or the technology that they've seen, the solution, whether they've just had a really nice time. Because even though we come and they talk about real stuff, whether it be, climate change, littering, how bad these vapes are, or gas canisters, or whatever we're sort of talking at the time, fire explosions, it's hard stuff to hear. So leaving that sort of, when they leave, I want them to leave sort of inspired and impacted and feel that there's definitely solutions out there that are going to make it better. And we're all doing stuff because there's so many things happening in this city where lots of people are doing lots of great things. And I think it's focusing on that rather than these are all the problems, but what are all the solutions, and let's find the solutions together type thing.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Dundee's changed beyond all recognition over the last few years. Are you from Dundee originally? No, are you Dundee?
Yeah,
Are you?
I am, yeah. And I left the city going off on my jolly travels probably, and, university and things around the age of sort of 19, 20, kind of 21. I really didn't look back for a while. I had a brief stint back in the city for a few years and then headed off again. But now feeling home, and I'm really home because of my granny and my aunties and my mum and, and my family that's here, to hang out with them as much as I possibly can. It's them that brought me back, or I used to think that, but actually now working out in the community and being in the community and seeing the development, seeing where we're going, seeing the future, it's a really great city, and I'm so proud to be from here, and I'm so proud to now be a part of the community and working in it.
That's really nice, actually. That's lovely.
Just going off topic again, Sarah, in terms of that engagement work you're particularly doing with school kids, do you do any stuff on career development or career opportunities within the sector with them? Is that part of what you're doing as well as the visit?
Yeah, so there's kind of two strings to the bow. There's the waste education bit, and then there's the sort of STEM related careers, which is also really fun. I go out and do, and I was never I'm not a science kid. I was a drama kid who did, art, drama. I at one point I even tried giving acting a go. So that stuff really scares me, talking about science. And as I get more comfortable with it, and do sort of STEM related stuff, and I tend to stay in my lane, try to stay in waste and stay within engineering. And that's sort of, not that I'm an engineer, but I try to promote engineering with kids and sort of stay there, and sort of get to know that sort of part of get my knowledge and confidence around that, and then be able to sort of promote the pathway. So we work with a college, and there's an Angus sort of training group as well that we bring in sort of apprenticeships from, and also do sort of like career events, and work experience, and sort of employment placements within the MVV, and promote that and manage that when it's on site.
That's really good. That's really good. So apart from the work role, how do you get away from work and enjoy yourself? What's your hobbies and your?
Well, I gym. I hike. Gym. Yeah. I like film, series film. Film fanatic actually. I snowboard. I eat. I like a drink. Bit of a catch actually. Yeah, good fun. I just like to have I like to have good fun, I suppose. Yeah.
I'm a skier myself, but I can. It's probably an exaggeration to say I can snowboard. I can get around the hill very poorly in a snowboard, but
so can I.
It just doesn't feel very natural. Where skiing feels quite natural, and the snowboarding just does not. It doesn't feel. It just feels hard work.
Yeah, my plan is to learn to ski. If I do get a family and they learn to ski, I'm going to learn to ski at the same time. That was always kind of my plan, so I can learn it. But I was always worried about I tore my ACL when I was slacklining weirdly in Greece, and just fell weird on it and just tore my ACL. So I was always a wee bit scared to pick up skiing, because at least with on a snowboard I know my limits, if I just strapped a couple of skis and threw myself down the mountain, I'm not really sure what would happen.
When you say you did your ACL, how did you do it?
Slacklining.
Slacklining.
You need to explain.
Yeah.
You need to explain to Jane what that is.
Also, don't want to make myself out like I cannot slackline, clearly.
Just pretend, nobody will know, Sarah.
It's no, please. But basically, it's like a band that you tie between two trees, and you balance on it. And yeah, we were just messing about on it in Greece, of all places, because at the time I was very young and never really kind of had the knowledge that I've got now around insurances and all of this stuff. So if I did it in Italy, I would have been whipped into hospital, got my ACL repaired, and been put on a plane home to recover for 6 weeks. But no, I did it in Greece, of all the places, and had to hobble about with just an x-ray and come home and wait a year to get my operation, which sort of took me out and grounded me for a bit. But once I got fixed, I was away again.
Okay, so the
Right
moral
on
of the
that
story
airplane
is
off.
do it in Italy, don't do it in Greece.
Yeah,
No,
do it on the ski
take
slopes.
out travel insurance, I think, Jane, is the moral of the story.
Well, actually, I had travel insurance at the time, but it was Greece, and they were going through a time of a new government, and yeah, hospitals, there's like one room and a huge queue of just, don't know if they mind me saying this, but that was my experience.
Right. We've had some we've had some different things on
We've
this
had
podcast
sidecar
so far.
racers, we've had it's the first for slackline. We've not had a slackline before.
No,
I think
no.
probably the first time snowboarding and skiing's been mentioned actually as well. So there we go.
Oh, God.
That's good. We could have asked what type of gym you go to. Because there's a whole variety of gyms nowadays as well in terms of this, what does they call it, the High Rocks and the...
Yeah, so I'm doing High Rocks in March.
There you
What's
go.
High Rocks?
Well, planning to. It's a ballot.
Hey, Jane will be sitting
Yeah.
there saying, what on earth's High Rocks? We're going to educate Jane here.
What's High Rocks?
It's a functional fitness thing. You run, and I think you run 8K, and then every
Isn't that
K...
6K? 6K?
Is it 6K? 6K or 8K?
Is it something like that?
Yeah.
In 1K intervals, isn't it? So you
1K
do...
intervals, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you do like sled, and then push and pull and burpees, and yeah. I might die. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Hopefully
You basically do a series of exercises, Jane, and then run a kilometre, and then do another series of exercises, run a kilometre, and so on. But you do it normally as a part of a team, or as a competition, as a team thing. But
Yeah, I'm doing a mixed doubles with my gym buddy. So
it's got extremely popular, and it's now actually quite hard to get in. And the number of people I know at the gym that have managed to injure themselves because they're not runners, but they're now running. They're maybe fitted for the gym, but they're not actually fit to run, and they end up getting injury.
I'm hoping to be run fit. Fingers
go.
crossed.
I'm obviously
There you go.
missing out.
There's your
on all of
education for the day, Jane.
this. I know, I'm obviously missing
Yep.
out.
Yep, you need to keep up.
Yeah, my excuse is I'm too old for all of this. You know, I'd rather sit on the sofa, watch the telly, drink my wine, eat my chocolate.
We've noticed
me
that from
too.
the Strava team channel, Jane. We've noticed that.
Noticed that from the fact all my clothes are getting too small for me. I think I've just shrunk them in the wash.
I also love the couch, Jane. I'm there with you.
You know, I did that couch to 5K, but there was more couch than K, so I gave up. So in terms of your current role, you've kind of sort of said what your current role is. What about going forward? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years or whatever? Is that just doing what you're doing? Do you see, you know, kind of managing the whole communications for MVV or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, CEO will sort me. That'll do me. No, I'm just kidding. No, well, my mum asks this. Yeah, sorted. My mum asks this all the time, actually. But you know, my way of thinking's always been, if I'm happy, I'll stay. As you can tell, I've never sort of settled. I say settled, but stopped until I was sort of 35. So I'm really just happy to have my feet on the ground right now, and be in a job that I love and feel secure with a team that I actually like, which is really good. And I think that's probably where I'm at just now. But yeah, certainly I'm always a person who needs to be challenged, and I'll certainly want to grow. But right now I just, I want to just wake up every day and think, great, I'm really happy I'm going to work.
Yeah, that sounds a good philosophy. How long have you been working for MVV then?
So I'm coming into my third year, so two and a bit years? I think it's, 2 and a bit.
And you're still wanting to get up every
year,
morning.
Yeah. Well, your first year, I kind of was like kind of finding my way. And my second year, so this 2024 has been really, what's the word? When you're satisfied or type thing in your role. I made an energy from waste, a video, which was really fun to make. I did media and communications at university, and I made a video back then, years ago, which was at the time we did like a sort of documentary, and never thought I would get to go back to something like that. I think when I first went to university, my plan was to be a production manager, which it's always so funny when I look back at it now. So yeah, getting to be involved in making a video like that and have so much creative input was super fun. And I also had a wee stint on STV News, which was so traumatic to know that it was coming out. The level of anxiety. I thought, how do people be famous? This is horrific. So hopefully that doesn't happen again anytime soon. So yeah, this year's been really good. I feel like I'm finishing the year thinking, wow, I've done some really cool things this year, and nothing went catastrophically wrong. And hopefully this podcast does not make me lose my job, and all will be well.
We'll be well. Don't worry about it. This will project your career forward, and STV will be banging on your door to send them the video of your energy from waste facility. So what about any fact you want to share about your job that you think, or your sector that you think people might not know? You must have so many stats for the kids, actually.
Well, with the waste, I always say to the young people, so I use quite a lot of analogies just to sort of give them a good picture of what it all looks like. But I always say we take 300 tons of waste, and then I say to them, if you imagine yourself standing on a giant standard size football pitch and it was covered with waste, that's how much we take in. And they, and that sort of gives them the that visual. The bunker is 11 meters deep, and I always say to them that if you imagine a giraffe standing on another giraffe's head, that's how deep our bunker is. I like that one. Obviously, there's the whole Toy Story analogy from Toy Story 4. As soon as they come in, I always say to them, has anyone seen the film Toy Story 4? And, they all, yeah. I say, so that's where you are, but the toys don't survive, which is really always gets them. And they're so cute. They always ask me about death. Has anyone ever died here? As you can imagine, constantly. They're obsessed. And I just tell them I lose a child every week, and they laugh at that as well. So yeah, there's a few things, a few antidotes that I use that are really funny throughout the day.
What's the weirdest thing they've asked you?
Yeah, the death thing is constant.
That's a weird one. Where does that come from, the death?
I think it's because they're up high. So they go up high, and then
so it's scary for them, and
they love getting in the lift because there's it's a 40-person lift, so there's 30 of them in there, so they all sardines, and they're all screaming, and they just have such a good time as soon as they get in the lift. And then once they see the grab, obviously they're shouting their claw every time. As soon as they just get up high, they start to think about death, and then it comes up.
I suppose for the people, I'm just thinking for listeners that have never been to a waste energy plant, it might be worth just explaining so you've got the pit, and then above that you've got a couple of overhead cranes with a big grab, basically.
Yeah, so they come in, so the tour is basically come in, visitor centre, and then they get a mini sort of presentation stroke lecture from me, which kind of explains the whole process. And then I take them into the tipping hall, where they get to see a tip, which is really nice because there's always sort of an energy that they bring just by being on site. The sort of bin vehicles coming in, the drivers always peep their horns, and it kind of gives them a good chuckle on their day. So that's always good. And then they get taken up to the control room, so they get to stand at a viewing port and see the bunker, the hopper, and the grab. I always ask to sit in the chair. There's a manual chair there, and they always ask to sit in it, and they always get told no. She always enjoy no. Can I touch this? No. So push their limits, and then they get taken down to see the furnace, so they see inside the boiler, which is really cool. 'Cause again, that's how their relation with death. They see fire. Can we go in there? What would happen if I went in there? Type thing. And then they get brought up, and then that's when we do the impact. Then we start talking about all the recycling they can see, and how do we get these things into the right bin, and then we start to have a solution-based conversation around waste education.
And how concerned are they about environmental things? How many questions do you get about, air pollution or that type of thing? Are they quite...
So the flue gas treatment conversation tends to come in more with university students or visiting community groups, or I'm a part of a group called Sustainable Dundee, for example. And if it was a group like that, we'd come in and we'd talk about sort of flue gas treatment and the science behind that. And initially, when I first had to learn all of that, that was my one. I was really scared trying to get my head around the science. And again, it's just because of the way I sort of learn. But I think I'm there with it. And again, I just, do the visual where the flying sponge flies around and collects all the particles, and then we, collect that into a sort of a coffee filter type kind of bag, and explain all of that. So that definitely feel a lot more confident having that conversation now than I did sort of a year in. And it did take me a minute, to get my head around it.
Yeah. It's pretty complex though, because when you go into your type of facility, you've got pipe work and you've got cables and you get everything flying about. It's really hard to distill that down to explaining to somebody in simple language what's actually going on there.
Yeah, and I think the layman's terms, or the breaking it down for young people to understand, is actually harder than explaining it as it is. Because you can explain it quite simply, but if you don't want to lose your audience, by getting too technical. And I think that's maybe what's good about me not having the science background or the engineering background, that actually I can come down to a young person's level by explaining it in a very sort of layman, normal term, rather than, my plant manager, he gets into it and he's, he's way high level kind of engineering chat. And so if I ever get someone in that, I sort of need support on, then I'll pull in.
You get him along to do the technical bit.
Yeah, certainly for that sort of part. And as I get better in my confidence and I learn more, and every time I go have a conversation with maybe an engineer or someone that's more sort of advanced around sort of the climate change or understands waste industry, you just learn so much. And just be like a sponge. And you only know what you know. And it's, I suppose, just about being open to ebbing and flowing and growing the knowledge constantly until you get to a stage where you're able to have these very intricate conversations.
It's a great way to learn, having to explain something to somebody is the way to learn, because the minute you get asked hard questions, you're like, oh, I don't know that, I need to go and find that out. So you by the very nature of trying to explain to people, you learn all the time. So That's
Yeah,
great.
certainly about being put under pressure in the beginning was what made me, go and do the digging and the learning to have the answers when people ask. So it's always good when someone asks a question. So I've got a bit of a cheat sheet. If we get into sort of the flue gas treatment, because even like the periodic table and things, I see that and just go, so yeah, I have sort of cheat sheets so I can be ready for, any sort of questions that come my way. And if I don't know, I just say, really sorry, I can't answer that. But I'll find out for you later type thing.
Yep. No, that sounds good. Okay. We always ask all our guests for a bit of your favourite piece of slang or dialect that you use, and I'm sure there's some good Dundonian dialect that's used all the time that you.
Well, so I actually thought about this, and so I actually sit most days in my work thinking, did he just say that? Because engineering chat is a walking innuendo. So for example, on our morning meeting, an engineer will be talking to another engineer and they'll say things like, did you stroke it? No, I don't think. Painting it was not what it needed. I think it was just needing a bit of greasing. And the whole time I'm just sitting there going, why is no one reacting to this? And then if someone brings up the shaft, I'm lost. I'm gone. I'm way too immature for this life. So yeah, I think that's for most of the part, that's what gets me going quite a lot of the time. I'm always laughing or trying to keep a very deadpan face in a call full of people talking about stroking and petting it.
Like that one. That's definitely a first for us as well, isn't it, June?
It's just so many. The flange, I always think is really funny. Hopefully I just said that right. Yeah.
Brilliant. I like it. So we're going to give you a magic wand to do something in the big bad world, to cure something in the big bad world of waste management. What would you like to use it for?
So I would probably have to say continuity and standardisation of waste signage, colour of bins, and a crackdown on greenwashing. That's got to be mine. I just think the market of single-use items that claim to be biodegradable is just out of control. In a nutshell.
It's just nonsense. Why don't you? It's like where was that the other day? I got a wooden teaspoon. And I'm still not totally convinced a wooden teaspoon is actually better for the environment than a plastic teaspoon.
I would like to see them up against each other. I really would on the carbon footprint.
And what's wrong with a metal teaspoon that can get washed?
It's very interesting actually when you asked the question about my entry into waste. My thought process around waste was actually just before that. I worked somewhere where they used, and I'm not going to mention the company.
You can if you want.
Well, no shame if you like.
Well, you might not want to. If you're going to talk about them badly, don't mention them then.
Well, no, it's not too badly, but it was a biodegradable product.
Yes.
And I remember thinking at the time, wow, this is amazing. This product is fantastic. And it wasn't until I actually got working for the waste industry where I started to realise that by telling everyone that their coffee cup is biodegradable, so they could sit on the side of the righteous, but it's actually just going in the general waste bin at the end, just it isn't ideal. It's and the thing about it is that the messaging is so wrong because we basically are putting these things in general waste, but if we could actually commercially compost them, but they're just the actual company isn't paying for the route to do that because it's probably quite expensive. Yeah. And a small cafe being able to afford that and be able to keep their business ticking over, it's just not a viable sort of solution, is it?
There's the second time I've had that conversation already today, Sarah. I was doing professional interviews for CWM earlier, and Debbie that was on mentioned that exact thing you mentioned. So her children's school has got biodegradable, everything's serving biodegradable plates that's meant to be okay, but then they're just chucking it in the residual and not actually composting the stuff.
Yeah, and I think with certainly with the domestic waste, I think a lot of people feel lied to. So they feel a bit hopeless because they think, oh, well, what do you mean it's not getting recycled? I put it in my recycle bin. No, but it's compostable. It needs to go for commercial composting. So there's that sort of messaging, and what the council are able to deliver, and then what the commercial market are able to deliver, and what's sort of feasible for everyone around the solution.
That's why we need more listeners to this podcast, Sarah. That's what we need, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to explain that it's not as simple as people think.
No, it really isn't, is it?
Yeah, we just want people to get that message that it's really important to recycle, and it isn't going to landfill, or it isn't going to energy from waste, or whatever it is being recycled. But if they didn't buy it in the first place, or they reused it, then, we wouldn't have that issue.
Even better.
Yeah. Even better. So finally, what advice would you give to people in the younger generation coming into the sector? If they're looking at you and saying, do I want that job? What would you say? Apart from get away, that's mine.
Yeah, you can't have it. I always think you should just be yourself. You can't be anyone else. I think I'm going to be turning 40 next year, and I think
you youngster.
I'm really excited about it.
I can tell.
The year of the 40, it's going to be so much fun. But
Your life just starts at 40, by the way. It just starts.
Yeah. And I think there's certainly a comfortableness that comes with getting older, with yourself. And, as you start to be more comfortable, you care less, and then you're able to sort of show a bit of personality, which is great. So I think as a young person, that's it, and as I work with young people, I constantly, talk about career advice and what they should do. And I'm quite lucky in the sense that I've had a lot of jobs. I've done a lot of things, and I've even done a stint in recruitment. And I've done the sort of pathway. I went through college and then I went to university. And then I've done that sort of pathway where it's not linear. And I've worked through a lot of sectors. So I think when a young person walks up to me and, they ask me, what I should do, I just ask them, what's your hobby? What do you wake up every day and like doing? And it's, go do that, but get paid for it. And if you can do that, then I think that's sort of magic. If you can make money doing something that you love. And it does take time to find as well. I'm kind of, I suppose for a really long time I was running away from adulthood. And, I do feel like I've sort of just come into being an adult and, what that actually means.
I'm still trying to do that, Sarah, yeah. So it's all right.
Every year, more adult every year. So yeah, I just, to any young person, I always just say, grab adventure while you can, and be yourself and take risks. I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of young people out there that probably, do need to just take risks in life, rather than just play it safe. Because I don't think I ever realised when I came out of university and I got the sort of big job and started, earning the money. And then when a friend turned around to me outside a bar and said, I'm just going to go on a ski season. I was like, what is that? And she explained it and I thought, wait a minute, I can come back and do this anytime. And that's what I did and I have. I am doing it. I'm not rolling in a big mansion or somewhere, but I certainly, I feel like I've lived to the fullest, and I think that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Just a final question for me. Do you think, as somebody that's quite new to the waste industry, you've only been involved less than 2 years, do you think there's enough support and guidance for people new to the sector, or do you think the waste industry could do anything better to sort of support and signpost people to the sector?
I think the jobs I think there's so many jobs in the sector that are like everything else, if that makes sense. You know, there's business development, there's you know, HR, there's IT, there's engineering, there's
there could be IT for any business. It does,
for sure. So I think it's one of those things where it's I don't know, maybe like, so I mean, I've been into just over 3 years counting NWH group, and I think it's a personality thing. You know, I think you're drawn somewhere, you know, because you like the people around you, and you want to hang out with them more. You know, and I think if you're going to be an engineer, you know, do it within a team you like. And if you want to be in HR, do that, but like everyone around you while you're doing it. And if you don't, then make a change. That's always the...
No, that sounds good. That sounds good. Thank you. Well, hopefully that wasn't too painful for you, Sarah.
I'm dreading this going out now.
No, not at all. You'll not be dreading it. I've heard a rumour you're going to foreign climates and you'll be sitting in the sun when this goes out. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.